Good morning, class. Today we are going to be wrapping up the chapter, and that means that we are going to have a quiz tomorrow. Now, tomorrow is also the last day for seniors, so seniors, if you owe me anything, please make sure that you get that made up and turned into me. You guys have been doing a great job, but everybody misses an assignment every now and again, or most people miss an assignment every now and again. So please just make sure, check RenWeb if you're missing anything. Please wrap that up and get that into me. All right, so today we are talking about how governments or political systems affect economic systems. And there is a lot of variance about governmental involvement in economic systems globally. So we have some governmental systems or political systems that have complete and absolute control of the economy. An example of that would be North Korea, which we had talked about before. Or other examples in recent history would be more along the lines of Cuba or Venezuela, where the nation is a more communist nation and they have price controls and production limits set in various areas of industry. So, for example, the food industry, they might set price like rice costs this much. Grocery stores cannot charge more than this for rice. Or beef costs this much, and grocery stores cannot charge more than this for beef. So, the government can be involved in setting prices, they can set quotas, they can set production limits. They can also determine how much someone is paid, and pay scales, or even just a flat pay rate for everyone if they want to. And that would be a more controlled economy. And that would be more in line with communist mindset. The idea of leveling the economic playing field completely. Everyone makes the same amount, from each according to his means to each according to his needs, which would be what Marx would have pushed for. Some governments don't want to take it quite this far, so they would have more of a mixed economy, which is some governmental control and some freedom, some laissez-faire, some capitalism, and some governmental control. And so examples of this would be more socialistic nations. Think like Scandinavian nations, for example, or even some nations that have very high levels of governmental control. The government might own some of the utilities. So it might be a national electric company, a national water company, and then other businesses might be private businesses. But the government may have some ownership of some businesses, and the government may have a lot of regulations on how much businesses are allowed to produce, how much businesses are allowed to charge for certain things, and tax rates are really high. So in a more of a mixed economy, which would be, it'd be like mixed on the edge of socialism. So there's more governmental control, more governmental regulation, but there's still some measure of freedom. You can pay people what you want to pay people. They just might get taxed more. And also you can produce what you want to produce generally, but there may be some regulations there as well. Whereas in a completely controlled or completely communist economy, like a Marxist economy. Now we can hash this out because there are actually different forms of a communist economy. So it's not just a Marxist economy, but I'm using that term colloquially or as jargon. So we could have like a more Marxist style economy, a socialist mixed economy, and then some nations may have, although no nation really has today, a completely capitalist economy where there really is no regulation. Uh, Governments regulate some things, and usually governments start out regulating things because someone has done something that has caused some problems. So governments regulate economies, and America would be more on the line generally of if this is a managed economy and this is a mixed economy, and this would be a free economy. We're more like in between. We're partially a mixed economy and partially a free economy. But there is still some governmental control. I mean, there are regulations on what you produce. The FDA regulates a lot of the drug industry, right? The USDA regulates the meat industry. It doesn't say how much meat can be produced necessarily, although sometimes there are limits on that as well. But that's usually only in extreme circumstances. Think like the Great Depression with the AAA, the Agricultural Adjustment Act. So there are some regulations, but generally, like if you want to create some entirely new product, well, go for it. Now, it'd be a wise idea to send it through the patent office, and the government will control, make sure your patent is protected so you can capitalize on that and make the most amount of money on that and not lose money to people copying your design, right? So, a lot of our laws actually protect the entrepreneur and encourage capitalism. So, there are varying degrees of economic control governmentally or politically depending upon where one lives and the governmental system one is under. And while I can't think of a single instance of a completely free economy where the government has literally no regulations at all, we live in a nation that has fewer regulations, and some people live in nations that have basically all the regulations where you're not free to do anything economically, and the government has to decide. The government owns the companies. The government tells the companies where they can work, what they can produce, etc., etc. So I just want to make sure you are aware of that continuum of different varying levels of governmental control of economies. In the email today, I will send out tips to study for the quiz, but this closes out the chapter on political systems. So great job. Keep up the good work. And we will talk in the coming days. Have a great day.